Very good morning to everyone and Happy New Year. Um, Thank you for making it for the Connect Secure weekly call. We will get started. So Shiva, if you're ready, you can share your screen and please request you to get started.
Yep, I will get onto it right away. Okay. Just sharing my screen.
Hi, good morning all.
Good morning.
Okay, very good morning, everyone, and basically to the first call of this year. Originally, we planned to have this call only next week, but I said, okay, we should have this call in the light of some of the recent developments and basically kind of get this in front of everyone. So I just wanted to start, wish you all a very happy and prosperous new year. And I hope this year basically brings you a lot of success and a lot of business. And we would like to be part of that journey along with you. Okay, so the first thing that basically I wanted to talk about is that we've seen a lot of discussions and debate about the whole migration thing that happened and how it's a fiasco, how it is a whatever storm, etc. But I just wanted to put it in perspective. So at the outset, if this has basically disturbed anybody in terms of what they're doing, etc., we apologize for that basically unconditionally. But I just wanted to kind of see what everyone to understand how basically we worked through this period to essentially see what we could do best from our perspective. So as we announced earlier, we basically have been announcing for the past 1 month that essentially everybody will have the opportunity to migrate their companies over, and basically we gave a migrate button and we had a migration guide which was basically posted up on the page. And then what we essentially did was on December 24th, which was basically pre-Christmas, we released the manual migration and we were ready to head out. And then post that on 26th, we saw a lot of comments which essentially came over the Slack channels, which essentially said, guys, like you can't make us do this whole thing manually. And what happens if I basically migrate and if I want to come back, how do I basically get the reports to my people? And we don't believe this is completely ready. So we basically will need time. And so there was a lot of feedback. And basically, I personally believe that a lot of those feedback were very valid. And if I was basically running a business, then I would basically be also worried about getting a product and basically not getting fully trained on it and etc. Although we released the beta version, we noticed that only probably 40 to 50 people basically were in the beta and the remaining people are not on the beta. So the concept was that we then said, okay, how do we essentially make this better? And then so we actually called back our engineers from the Christmas time, and we essentially kind of sat together and we looked at what essentially could be done in order to assuage these concerns. And that's when we essentially came up with this whole thing saying that why don't we essentially migrate all of the partners into the new instance. And basically, when we say migrate, we're really not migrating. We essentially are giving you an additional instance, which is basically the V4 instance. You have your V3 instance, which works exactly the way that it is supposed to work, and no change happens. It is just that we upgraded the agent to essentially kind of create a new service in the V3 itself to essentially go and start sending data to the new portal. So what happens is that you see all of the data, all of the reports in the old portal, you see all of the data in the new portal, you have adequate time to compare, you can essentially see all of your companies, and basically you don't need to actually do anything manually in order to essentially get these two into sync or basically worry about managing when you will migrate them, etc. So, and the whole concept was that we would basically run this and you would have adequate time to essentially go through what we have done in the V4 portal and keep coming back to us saying that, oh, I don't like this, or I like this, and I want this changed or that changed. And we would essentially keep making those changes. And one of the reasons for why we are talking so much about migrating to V4, and all of this stuff is I want to kind of lay it out in front of you. The entire reason for why we needed a V4, right? See, the point is that we had the previous version, which was V2 plus V3, whatever we called about. We have a load of features. We kept adding features. Even till last week, the week before Christmas, we were adding features on that product. So I could have basically said, yeah, that is the product, and left it over there and kept basically doing it. But this is the standard problem that you encounter in every industry, right? So the problem is that then eventually that architecture that you built will give up at some point of time, because it was built with a certain scale and a certain set of features, velocity in mind at that particular point of time, because you didn't have the visibility of this later. And then what will happen is that while today all of you are seeing the frustration of saying, oh, I have to migrate to this new platform, the same or even bigger frustration would essentially ensue when you basically have a platform that 6 months or 9 months later would essentially start underperforming, and then we become extremely slow in delivering new features for you, and we are not keeping up to date. And for example, some of you basically talked about vulnerabilities and how basically it should be mapped. The way that we are mapping vulnerabilities in the new system, the algorithms that we are using are far more advanced. In fact, a lot of you have basically said, oh, I'm seeing some vulnerabilities that I never saw earlier. How can these vulnerabilities be there? And now we are finding evidence of things which we basically didn't do earlier, because we have probes which are basically going deeper into the system. It is not basically doing it at a certain level. So for example, it is scanning the file system. It's looking at what is there inside the file system. It's basically pulling out that data. It is basically showing you vulnerabilities which are probably there in the data. So the goal is to essentially kind of become an enterprise class platform, but with a price structure so that you can essentially make extremely good margins on this and yet give you the comfort of an enterprise platform. If I have to do that, the only way I can do that is basically by migrating the underlying infrastructure. And to be very honest, is it a tall ask? Yes, it was a tall ask, because we replaced the languages. We moved from the languages we had earlier to Rust-based frameworks. The entire login was on Keycloak earlier, which was basically a Java-based system, and it was not stable. So a lot of you used to have problems saying, oh, suddenly it stopped logging in, etc. We moved to a newer system, which is Zitadel, which will give you far more flexibility. Are there certain problems with Zitadel right now? Yes, there are. And we are basically looking at and fixing all of those pieces as we are going forward. And we basically then have rolled out everything. Now, even the agents are auto-upgrading themselves. They're coming online. As they come online, they are being basically pushed into the new system. And this is also giving us the capability to look at how well is the new system scaling. And so far, it looks good that the new system is scaling. So we will be able to give you better performance. And even like in the next 2 years, we will basically be adequate with the current level of infrastructure. But the beauty of what we have done is that we can add new infrastructure into this whole system without disturbing any of the things that we are doing right now. And we can add new features with a good velocity. And that is why we are basically creating this. So the whole thing is that we want to remove technical debt. But please also understand that I am not removing, or we are not basically saying that the existing instance is gone. So you guys can freely go into the existing instance. You have all the data, everything is working as it was working before you went on your vacation. All of the bug fixes are still happening on those. The only thing is that any new features, integrations we're putting in the new platform, if it is such a priority, we'll do it on the old platform too, if so required. But that is our commitment to all of you. But what we want to also be able to do is that you give us feedback. You give us basically, you can take the position of being a very strong teacher and basically telling us what's wrong. And that is what a lot of you, we are really thankful to a lot of you, because you've been giving us this feedback. Like people like Dennis, Simon, all of these people have basically given us so much of feedback. And Andrew Watasco, the feedback that they gave us is what has shaped the product to what it was. Now, it's an opportunity for all of you to essentially kind of do the same with this new version. And again, without having any pressure in terms of that this is a new version that's already been given to me. I can't do anything, this thing. No, you have the existing version. Everything is working there. You can use that. but look at the new version and see how you can basically get it to a state where you can basically make this better for your business. And what else should I add so that you will make more margins on this? That's all basically we will talk about. And if you look at the current status, see the data has been migrated. So which means that all your credentials, all your users, all your roles and company restrictions, the only thing which were not migrated is basically the custom roles. If required, we'll help you with, you let us know what are the custom roles you want us to migrate using a ticket, and we will essentially create a script to migrate those. All of your settings are migrated. We have sent messages to probes and lightweight agents, which are online. So you will actually see them basically reporting into the new portal. There will be a few which are not reporting because they were offline earlier, and messages when they come, they are basically skewed so that they don't essentially overwhelm the system. The data is flowing into the current system as well as the old system. You can run for a period of 90 days minimum. Again, as I said, this 90 days is not something saying that you have 90 days to get there, right? It is based on, as a group, what we think is the right time to basically switch off the old system. If the group thinks that we need to extend it for another 90 days post that, no problem, we'll basically extend it. The concept is that if we don't put a timeline to it, then I'm pretty sure that everybody is going to go back and basically say, oh, we have enough of time for basically doing this, so we look at it later. So we have to put some sort of a timeline because again, we are going to be spending time and resources in both of this. So we want to spend more time in the newer version and basically getting it better than to essentially kind of keep maintaining the old version. So that's basically an indicative timeline. But if you need more than this time, we absolutely will be here to accommodate it. And that is what we will do, because that is the right thing to do by you. And we will always be basically doing the right thing by you. The other thing is that we know that there are a few things which are missing in the new version, which basically we will be delivering in a few days. So the Linux agent with migration is basically coming on is basically already scheduled. It will be coming out very shortly. The dashboards will be available as soon as the VAPT go ahead happens, because you remember the dashboards are a separate portal. So we have to make sure that that is basically that nobody gets access to it, etc. The reports will be available next week. Again, we have changed the complete concept of reports. I will basically demonstrate it next week and you can look at it. The web installer will be there on 12th Jan. The patching and the assessment executables will be there on the 19th Jan. So these are all basically already scheduled, and we are basically kind of pushing this together. So while I understand it has been a little bit of a heartache in terms of the mails coming in, etc., I think basically that as a team, we basically request you to just look past that and help us basically build this. And as I said, we are basically all of your feedback which comes in is not only going to be used for what we do in the product. We are also basically going to be returning this entire favor to you, because as we said, we are a company that believes in whatever value you give, we should basically reward you for it. And as I said, we already have the partner stock option plan where we have made the allocation of stock. We will, during this period, all of you folks who basically contribute into making this product better, absolutely, you will essentially be based on your contribution. We will be allocating stock for you, and we will make sure this thing. So this is a very good opportunity for a lot of folks to earn stock, and this could be all of the, not just the owners of the companies, but all the technical staff, all the consultants who are on the different companies, please come in, contribute, and basically on stock, and this will be very good for everyone. So that's basically what we are in the current status. And this is a commitment that we can very clearly make, that we will not need any such major upgrade for the next 48 months. So because we have built it for the future, it is not built for basically solving a problem for say a year or 2 years, basically. But 48 months is basically 4 years. So I think in 48 months, why 48 months? Because I do not know what will be relevant after 4 years, right? We don't know what the pace at which things are going. Things will become irrelevant very quickly. So if we don't allow for refreshes to happen at least after 48 months, then you will basically not no longer trust us as a platform. So that's essentially this thing, because this was in response to a comment that was there yesterday saying that I hope this is the last upgrade they put us through. So this thing. So one of the things is that, see in your instances, you want to know what is your migration status. If you basically log in, once you log in over here, you will essentially see this which says migration status. And in the migration status, you can see the list of all your companies. You can see how many agents and basically assets, everything have been migrated, how many are pending, how many are offline. So those that are offline will also be pending. So basically that is what you will get. So this way, what happens is that you can essentially in a real time see if all your agents have basically gone or are sending data to the new system, then, and you can see all of their data, then you're good to go. We made some significant changes in the external scan view. So you can essentially see all of the data in the external scan views with the results. So basically, please try it because these results are far deeper than what we had in the earlier versions. And as I said, if you think
Garbage in here, if it's possible, please. Big one, no. We use big ones. It's good. Like that. The big one.
Yeah, maybe around 3,000 or maybe 600.
Okay.
Let's find it. How much for the cabin?
Okay. Okay.
Nasser, mute your phone.
so. So in the external scan view, we basically have the newer capabilities. So you can essentially see that we essentially are able to do scans using for mail protocols, for MySQL protocols, SMTP commands, all of these pieces, okay, in the new external scan. These were all there earlier, which is SSTL vulnerabilities, but basically a whole bunch of new kinds of scripts are basically running in the external scans. And this was one of the things that I should thank Dennis and others for pointing out, saying that we are not as strong as Qualys and other tools in terms of our external scans. We have basically significantly upgraded the capabilities of the external scan so that you can essentially get more comprehensive intelligence on external scans. And that's what basically the team is showing you, like what ports are open, what is security and all of that stuff. The second one is that we basically now have built-in Active Directory audit views, and you can essentially see like what are the audit events that are coming in, the user statistics in terms of different events that are occurring. You can essentially see all the login events, logout events, what are the, if any computer account was changed, all of those pieces. We also have the ability to alert on things like if an alert, basically, if a user logs in from a different location or a user basically logs in at a point of time that he usually does not log in. So those pieces also have been added to the system. So this way, what happens is that we become more comprehensive in terms of what basically people want. So the Active Directory view again, this basically was a little bit of a tricky thing because we essentially are pushing data from the event, the events from basically to two systems, and that would essentially put a burden on a system. So we devised a compression algorithm which would essentially allow us to kind of reduce the traffic, and essentially that's what we are basically kind of put out over here. And that is where basically the advantage comes in, saying that, okay, as we move forward, the two things that you will see with your agents as we move forward is lesser bandwidth consumption with the new agent, because there is basically a difference protocol. So every time I send data from a system, it essentially computes the difference of what happened previously versus what is there currently, and then sends only the difference over. And the earlier systems basically used to send the full data each time. And so basically that was a huge drain on the bandwidth. Second is all of your lightweight agents are real time now. So which means that you patch a piece of software, basically within the next 10-15 minutes, whenever basically the push cycle happens, it collects the data immediately, but it pushes once in 10 minutes, because that's easier for us to essentially kind of make sure that all the data is collected and sent in one package. And that also improves the compression that we do. So when we basically push that essentially helps us in compressing the amount of data. And so if you install a piece of software and then you come back 10-15 minutes later, you will essentially see that the remediation has gone through. So no more basically saying that I need to run a scan, etc. Third, if a particular software gets a new vulnerability, no need to run a scan. Even before running a scan, that new vulnerability will show up. So no need to run offline scans. all of those concepts are removed in the new version. So experiment with the new version. Basically, the existing version continues to be there. We will support you with whatever you require. And basically, we humbly submit, we are also human. So basically, there may be errors on us, and basically, we ask for advance forgiveness in those cases. But we will be essentially delivering a product that basically meets all of your requirements. We also are ready with something which we will talk about not next week, but the week after next, is basically a very specific view, which is called MSSP view. And this was something that, thanks to Jason Whitehurst, we basically went into Tech Tribe, and they basically gave us this feedback. So specifically for MSSPs, one of the things that was happening is that you're fiddling around with permissions in the current view to essentially kind of say, okay, this person is an MSP, so he has these views, but if they have to add a company, they have to add credentials, they have to basically come back to the MSSP, and this is not ideal, right? So what we are creating is basically what is called an MSSP view, where you can essentially take over an existing MSP if they already have Connect Secure, or you can add a MSP from within your login, in which case it would essentially create virtually a account which is basically attached to you, but they would have all the ability to, when they log in, they have all the ability to manage it just like any other MSP account is there. So that feature basically took us a long time to essentially evolve and basically get it into play because of the various permissions and how to handle those permissions. But that essentially is something that I will demonstrate the week after next, after we finish the reporting. And so that should help a lot of MSSPs in terms of their operational nightmare that they have right now. So that's basically the updates for today. And as I said, thank you for your patience. And basically, I hope you guys have an excellent new year.
So Shiva, can we just quickly get into a few questions?
Absolutely.
John, let's start with John, has a question around the context sensitive help, not being consistent through the new UI. Am I missing something is his question.
No, you're not missing anything. So the point is that there are certain places where the help is being written. We have our documentation specialist, Ryan, who's basically finishing up some of those pieces. And as and when those pieces are completed, they will just be linked in over. So it's probably like the remainder of this week and probably an initial part of next week that will be completed.
I'm actually not seeing any help at all and no documentation. So if we could be directed to that, that would be very helpful because, we got a lot of hats, we wear a lot of hats, and, trying to just figure stuff out, it's just very time consuming. So any documentation you have would be very helpful.
Yep. So Rishani, if you're on the call, can you please post the link to the V4 documentation?
Yes, sir, I'll do that right away.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Sean has a question, when will the auto migration happen? So Sean, the answer is it's already happened. If you have any problems, please reach out to support and we will certainly help you there. Michael has a question on, is there a public roadmap for this that shows impacts or cost to MSPs? Not exactly sure if I understand that. Michael, would you mind just coming on, kind of just explain that a little bit, please?
Yeah, he kind of covered it, saying, we're not going to do another migration like this for 48 months, which is great. That's half of what I'm looking for. Okay. With vendors, I find often that we talk about greater margins, but in order to get that margin, we have to realize the cost, both internal and external. This is going to cost me 50 grand of time. So that was unknown to me prior to signing contract. And that's something that now I need to go to my executive leadership team and explain. And so that's what I'm talking about for roadmap is, how much time per tenant do you think a migration would take? The auto migration is great, wasn't really in the documentation. So I think you guys are learning how to do this, but just understand that particularly for larger MSPs, this is huge.
Understood. Valid point. Simon's question is on on-prem version, Shiva. You want to go for it?
On-prem, basically, we will start from 19th Jan. Once we have all of the core features that I talked about, then on-prem, basically, we will provide an upgrade script for everybody, basically post that 19th Jan. So probably around 26th Jan, we will be able to upgrade it. And then after that, you can essentially kind of use the system exactly as you're using it right now.
Scott question is that they don't have any lightweight agents or probes checking into the new portal. He's seeing all his companies and data, but no agents.
So, Scott, Vishali, can you just reach out to Scott and get his tenant name? We can have somebody check out, because
Yes, sir.
we just went out to all the agents that were online, and then basically if they were offline, then they would basically not this thing. Second could be that there could be issues with if there are any firewall outbound issues. So we'll actually send you the guide of what are the extra ports that basically need to be opened. I will basically get that sent out to you.
Okay. Next question is from Steve on the partner stock option plan. So Steve, please give us let's just get through this migration piece, and then we'll be announcing the probably towards late January, early February, we'll announce the phantom stock option plan for partners. So,
and you don't need to join anything, Steve. The point is that what we do is that we basically automatically, based on the support tickets you raise or any emails you send us or any feedback that you give us, there is a system that we essentially use to essentially say that what is the value that we can attribute to any suggestion, etc., produced to the product, and that computation is made, and based on that computation, we take the entire pool and compute a percentage, and basically that's how stock is assigned to you. So it is basically, it's a purely something that we allow everyone to earn through this entire system.
okay, moving on. So I think Patrick answered the question from Michael on the new URL. So thank you, Patrick. And Michael hopefully got the answer. Eric has a point on using Threat Locker and found that we are using OS Query, and that's signed by a certificate belonging to someone called Nicholas Anderson.
So OS Query is something basically that is released by Facebook, and that essentially is a executable that allows you to query for various systems in the like basically various, you can basically query for what is the disk and what is the CPU information, etc. So we use it as a underlying tool to basically run a few queries on top of it and basically get some system information. And that system information is what we consolidate and send over. So if you really look at it, for all of these systems, we use OS Query A as a mechanism to get a part of the data. On Windows systems, we will, in certain piece of information, a large part of the information comes from various registry keys. And we also basically query certain things through PowerShell, because we don't get them through registry keys, etc. Then we basically have to run certain set of PowerShell commands to essentially fetch the data. So these are the three things that essentially we do to put the data, pull the data into the system. And this has been the way that it has been in V3 also, in the older agent, and the newer agent also is the same.
Okay, so hopefully that answers your question, sir. Yeah, thanks, David, for elaborating that further. But yeah, Jeffrey has a question on his overview page has no content. He does see agents, but the only option that's available for him is to delete companies on the right side menu, and the dashboard icon on the right bar also doesn't work. I think it says goes to some backend stuff. So Jeffrey, my request is maybe again, Vrushali can reach out to you with your tenant name, so we can help debug what is the core issue there.
So Patrick, in terms of if we have agents that haven't been migrated, the point is that there is basically a script that's running in the backend that goes out every 6 hours and basically kind of looks at any agents that basically have not been migrated and basically kind of pushes a message to say that please migrate and start sending it to the new portal. So you will see this continuously happening. And my suspicion was that since a lot of the users, probably laptop users, etc., may not be in office this week and they may come back next week, we probably will see that as we go closer to the end of next week, that everybody basically is back and all of the assets would have been reported in.
Okay, moving on. Chris has a question on where is the migration status? Is there any place where we can see that he can see the status of that?
So as I said, it will be there in the under the profile icon. There is basically an option called migration status. I think somebody replied to that too.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Simon's question, would it be possible to see the pod instance location and the region within the portal?
Actually, that's an interesting, yeah, we can do that. Yeah, I will basically get that put into the system. Yeah.
Actually, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, thanks, Simon. We'll add it to the roadmap and get that out. Next question, do we need to recreate scan jobs? We see agents, most are offline, and I don't see scheduled scan in the new version.
So probe schedules are basically pulled in automatically, and the probes are basically taking those schedules. So you will see those scheduled scans. Lightweight agent scans are removed because lightweight agents are now real time. So there are no more lightweight agent scans. And the reporting schedules will basically be, you will see them pulled into the system the moment reports is activated. And it is there under the report section. So basically you will see those report schedules under that section. And one of the reasons for why we are putting these things into specific sections is because you would have seen the roles allow you to basically make sure that people get access to certain regions and don't get access to other regions. For example, you can say somebody is only a vulnerability viewer, so he sees only vulnerability. Somebody is basically a compliance viewer, he can see only compliance. So we've kind of made this available so that you can essentially switch on and switch off things which you want people to see and you don't want people to see.
Okay, moving on, another question from Chris. Most of our customers show migrated, but there's no data. Assets all say not scanned.
So Chris, I think basically the agents would basically be coming online and pushing data. I can basically have somebody look at your instance and see what is the data that is coming through. If there is any inconsistency, we can basically look at it. But from what I've seen, basically the data has basically started to come through. If there is any inconsistency, we can basically look at what it is there.
Nathan does anyone else seems to be having issues with agents checking in? Nathan, I would request that you reach out to support. We will certainly help you out with your tenant name. And support at cybercns.com and we'll get you help there. Next question is also my asset status shows offline and there are no records found for vulnerabilities in V4. Shiva, anything on that? He's saying that his asset status shows offline and no records found.
So the point is that asset status basically will basically come online the moment basically. See, right now we've kept all the asset status as offline because there is two pieces, right? Like one is basically it's there in V3 and it's in V4. So we've basically not pushed the the agent status into the V4 portal as yet. So we will essentially push that V4 status basically probably in the next couple of days, we'll push it in. But the reason we are doing that is to basically not overwhelm the system at this point of time as people are migrating in. So I think people should not worry about what is the agent status as long as the agent is reporting in data. If there is any other inconsistency, yes, we basically will be looking into those.
Yeah, so Todd also saying he doesn't have anything that we just, whatever you just shared. So I think, Todd, perhaps I just want to double check that you are logging to the new portal at myconnectsecure.com and not the old, at mycyberscene.com, which is the version 3. So because once you log into the new portal, you should see the new UI UX experience that Shiva shared. So let us know on Connect, and we will certainly try to help you there. Next question, when will the migration status and the AD audit view be pushed? The AD audit is actually a pretty big deal.
The AD audit, basically, the AD audit and migration status will be pushed tonight, basically US time. So tomorrow morning when you enter in, you will essentially see all those views in your portal.
Hey, Nick, I see no open to upgrade V4.
You would have received a mail to basically like log in to Beta Connect Secure, and then it will contain the username password. You just put that in, and then you can essentially kind of put your two-factor authentication, get set up, and then you will essentially see all of the data in your system.
And Patrick's next question is 2 questions actually. Where do we change job schedules in V4, and how do we push patches in V4?
So I think a lot of this will become clear once we essentially send out the documentation link, Srikanth. And
Yep.
what I would also say is that maybe we should do one session where we basically walk through the V4 product. And I think that's a responsibility that we should take. And probably in the next week's call, we'll extend it by maybe 20, 30 minutes, but we'll walk through every single feature in V4 so that everything is basically clear to everyone.
Yeah, makes sense. So Patrick, good point. Maybe in the next partner call, we'll take it as an action item to do a complete walkthrough of the new version, so that what is where, things like that will become more clear. Chris has the next question is that when will patching be live? Last time you had said by mid-January. He wants to know whether it's still on track for mid-Jan.
Yeah, January 19th.
Okay. David has a point on, is there a way that the content of this partner call can be more categorized, browsable, question focused, FAQ? So yeah, David, we have already started that. In fact, it's one of the from the MSP community, one of the partners was actually transcribing some of this content, and then we took that content and we're going to post it along with the video, so that in lockstep with the video you can see some of that content and notes that this partner is taking, and it's extremely useful information. So I will certainly send out an update out to everyone after this. So Sean, I think your question of where is the migration status was already answered. So if you scroll, you'll see that. Mac has a question in V3's remediation plan page. There was a button for integration action that allowed us to pick specific remediations to automatically create tickets for PSA integration. Is this coming to V4?
So all the PSA integrations have been basically brought into V4. Okay, so we basically brought in all your keys and everything we brought into V4. The only thing that you essentially need to do is, because the way that we've changed what we notify on, so the event sets you'll have to choose. Once you choose the event sets, then all of your tickets and everything will basically get created.
James has a question on, is the custom domain name possible in V4, the white label part?
Yes, the custom domain name is basically going to be released with the Jan 19th release that we are putting out. You will get the ability to set your own custom domain name and routing through your custom domain.
David has a good point that maybe we should link the documentation as part of the new UI itself somewhere, prominently, so that as people make the switch to the new UI, they want documentation help, they can click right there and get that. So perhaps that's something that we can look at.
Yes, we are going to do that, and Swami is committed that by end of this week, he will basically have the help in line with the in the UI itself.
Chris was seeing some inconsistency between user permissions from the old platform to the new. It appears that users now need to have full admin access in order to see global views.
No, that is not true. If so, the concept is that if you click on global, you will only see if you have restricted companies, then you will basically see only the data corresponding to those companies. Otherwise, the global view basically works like if you're an admin, you see all of the companies. Everybody else, you see only whatever companies you have access to in the global view. So there is no, so in fact, we've transitioned to a system where in the older one, basically, if you were not an admin, you could basically not see a bulk of the global view. And then we created patches for different pieces to be seen, etc. In this particular case, the global view works exactly as it's supposed to, which is if you have access to 3 companies, you can see all the data for the 3 companies. The only thing is that if you're not seeing all of those pieces, please remember that each of the tabs, it's almost like a tab basis, right? So you can basically set up a permission, whether a person is a viewer or he's basically a writer, which means that he can configure that piece. So based on that, essentially the permissions are given. So if you give him all the permissions of read, then he can essentially look at the global view and see everything.
So in this case, the user had full viewer and writer access to all companies, but on the global tab, he was getting a 403 unauthorized error until I switched him to admin role.
So in the earlier one, was it a custom role?
No,
What
I don't
role?
believe so.
If you don't mind, if you can basically just share with us that username privately or just open a ticket with us, we would like
Sure.
to investigate so that basically we can make sure that if there is any inconsistency there, we can fix it up.
Okay, yeah, I'll open a support ticket. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, I think a few questions. Sean, Nathan, absolutely the whole idea is to stabilize version 4. But having said that, in the meantime, version 3 continues to work. So, and with all latest improvements as of December, there have been updates and upgrades pushed there. So everything is current and it works well. So please give us a little bit more time. We'll make sure that you get a product that meets and exceeds your expectations. So that's on that piece. We have a couple of more questions on SSO. Has single sign-on been mentioned? It has to be reset up.
SSO basically with external IDPs has to be reset up, and that is primarily because when you basically configure an IDP, you have to basically configure once again the return URL back. So which is one of the reasons for why we basically did not migrate that over. And basically we'll basically with Zitadel with all of the different IDPs, I will get this set up and basically give you documentation on how to set up with different IDPs as we have for V3.
Bunch of questions from from different folks. Michael, Chris, Rafa, so on the fact that the new version doesn't work on mobile, tablet, and Edge, Safari doesn't work. Firefox just gets stuck in a login loop. The only browser that seems to work is Chrome.
So we've tested with it works on the mobile as far as it's Chrome, but we got the report on basically not working on Firefox yesterday from Chris actually. So basically our team is checking onto why basically that inconsistency is happening. We basically root caused it to one particular JavaScript file that is there as part of Zitadel, which we basically are working with. We are basically working on replacing it inside of Zitadel itself. So once that is done, we will essentially kind of have this full compatibility. The remaining part of the UI is basically fully compatible. It's only during the login that basically we see this incompatibility.
Okay, moving on. Is it possible to schedule external scans, not seeing that option?
Yes, it's possible to schedule external scans. I'll send the main thing is that I think we are just completing up the documentation. So I will basically post the documentation and put the documentation inline. Probably just give us another day or two, and this will basically be inline. So once that is done, you will be able to see where the options are. It's just that the right-hand tab basically has all of the options.
Scott's question is, we have no lightweight agents or probes checking into the new portal. I'm seeing all our companies and data listed, but no agents. Is that something that I need to do?
No, you don't need to do anything. It's very likely that when it went through all of your agents, basically it didn't find the agents to be online. Well, that's unlikely. So we'll do a backend check. So Vishali, just please note down his tenant ID, and we will essentially do a backend check as to why those basically did not check in.
Sure, sir.
And Matt has a question that, is there a way to force an agent migration for devices that are online?
So we're doing that from the backend. If you think you want to have that feature, I can basically kind of introduce by early next week a button which says you click on migrate and it will do the migration. If that's what you require, please put a thumbs up and we'll basically put that in the place. This question, the point is that configuration.my, this I've already put in the documentation, David. HTTPS configuration.myconnectsecure.com/API/v4 with configuration agent link OS type equal to Windows will give you the link that basically is already there, and you will be able to use that with your RMM scripts.
Again, couple of questions on where do you see migration status? And I think the problem is you're able to see that only the new UI and not in if you are sitting in the version 3 UI.
Pardon?
The migration status cannot be seen in the older V3 UI. They can only see it in V4. Or am I getting it?
No, we are going to basically provide the migration status in the V3 also, but give us a couple of days. By Monday, we'll basically make it available in the V3 portal also.
Right. So hopefully David and Sean, Tim, that should help.
So Simon, when accessing network scan findings, regardless of what company I select the company filter, I'm seeing data for all companies. If you switch from global to basically a company, maybe you're seeing this. I think basically this issue was resolved today. Have a look at it. If you still face this error, please let us know. We'll basically get this resolved for you.
Okay, for those who are using beta.myconnectsecure.com for testing, will there be a path of migrating those to portal.myconnectsecure.com?
Yes.
Okay, that's great. So hopefully that answers your question. Migration status, Andy has a question that migration status says hundreds migrated, but no assets under any company.
So again, we'll have to check. So there are two things, right? One is basically in case the agent is not able to make an outbound connection to the port, to the new portal. That's one of the reasons for why this could be happening. And second is that if it is not able to basically connect to port 4222 because of any outbound firewall restrictions, that could happen. So again, give us your tenant. We'll basically tell you what is the exact error that is basically occurring. And then if that is resolved, then you should see the data coming.
I mean, there's hundreds of assets that are in houses or in businesses. I mean, it's not going to be file rules for hundreds of agents, is it?
Correct. So that's why we're basically saying that if you can just give us your tenant name, we'll basically look at it as to why that is not checked in.
Okay. Where do you want that in the chat or just a support ticket?
Yeah, you can just put in the chat. We'll take it from there and we'll open a ticket and we'll respond out to you.
Cool. Thank you.
David's question is, he's added new clients yesterday to V3 and rolled out agents and also reinstalled V3 agents and removed V3 agents. None of the agents in V3 have checked into the non-beta V4. And the new clients haven't shown up at all.
So because we are not started running the incremental sync, and again, basically, we are going to be kind of talking about this next week. See, a few of you are saying we need to run the incremental sync, which we will do. And a few of them basically feel they don't want to run the incremental sync at this point of time. They want to run it later. So what we're going to do is that post this sync operations and everything basically getting migrated at the state it is currently, we will be providing you with a button where all the companies that you have not yet migrated or you're making any changes, you can click a button and basically say, take this over to the new portal, and it will basically move it over to the new portal. But since that is something which is incremental, it's not basically migrating hundreds of agents, etc. It should be a simpler task for everyone to do. So we will provide that as an incremental sync. So we already have the code to do the incremental sync. It's only that we are basically waiting because we realized that there was one of the problems that we had created with this whole thing and unfortunately, this is something that also points out to us because we didn't realize that this was the case. A lot of you, I think, a lot of partners had basically customers basically also as part of the list of users in there. And so when the mails went out, it also went to the customers. And this is something that we forgot to realize. And this is basically something wrong in hindsight, which is why basically we are not going to be doing user syncs again, unless you explicitly want us to sync a particular user. So we'll give you the ability to sync users individually. And also the companies and the can be synced individually. So we'll provide those capabilities. We did provide it earlier, but then when we did the auto migration, we didn't realize that this problem would occur. And that was our mistake.
David has a couple of questions. One is that there is migration status should say how much time is left is what I'm understanding from the question. And also load times, apparently he's experiencing very slow load time on the new portal.
So yes, the load time will be slow in terms of the initial time when you log in and then come back. That is something that we're working on. But if you're seeing load time errors in times of when you're clicking on different parts of the UI, please let me know because that's something that we've kind of fixed. So
yeah, Craig has questions that he has assets but no companies. He's not seeing any companies in the new V4.
Probably this basically is because of the permissions and the roles that are in there. So maybe there was some custom role and probably that custom role basically, since it's not migrated, you're not able to see it. So please open a ticket with us. We'll help you basically sort that out.
I think, yeah, more feedback around the fact that if you could say what is automatic and what is expected from partners, as in what is manually they have to do.
There is actually a web page which basically talks about everything that basically is automatically migrated and what has not been automatically migrated. And I think Ryan has posted it. I will also basically create a cheat sheet saying that if this is what is there in V3, this is how you will need to migrate it in V4. And if there are certain ways of automating some of those other pieces also, we'll look at automating them.
Okay, so yeah, Michael, point taken that we need to have a specific end time for migration. The document is very generic and there are some spelling errors. So we will aim to fix that and make sure that those mistakes are fixed ASAP. Kevin has a question, is the Linux agent available or when is it available?
Linux version is basically, as I said, within the next 3-4 days, you will essentially see it happen. We've already basically put it into testing.
Sean has a question on Azure SSO in V4. He tried to set it up in Citadel without success.
So I'm going to basically publish a guide of how to basically integrate Citadel with all of the providers we have today. So you will be able to follow it and it's going to be fairly simple to set it up.
Yeah, so some feedback that V4 is in a bit of a mess right now. And like I said in the past, our request is that, the transition is a difficult phase. Not to say that we are absolving any responsibility there. 100% we'll make sure that each one of you gets the support that you need. But just request your patience for a few more days as this process gets done. The good news is that your older version continues to exist and works. So technically, you should not have any downtime or challenges on that front. So hopefully that should alleviate some of the pain while we continue to work on getting the new version to be to the level and expectation that you have from the product. Simon, he's seeing an issue in V4 where accessing the network scan findings view, regardless of which company he selects, he's still seeing data for all the companies.
Yeah, so we just discussed that. So we'll basically, I basically said, like, let him try today. In case it's still the case, we will basically look at what's happening with that specific tenant.
Okay, so David has a question. When you to send a request to configuration.mycyberscreeners.com/API v3, and that
This I basically, it's basically HTTP API, which is basically migrated to myconnectsecure.com v4, same URL, you will basically get it. So that API is also available right now.
Okay. Chris has a point that we have cancelled way too many weekly calls and need to get better. Yes, sir. We will aim to not cancel any partner calls and be there. Chris Moore from UK has just joined recently, and his V4 migration has done some weird things, keeps asking for new MFA configs which appear in Microsoft Authenticator under email addresses he has never used. He cannot see any option to configure users or basically any top-level admin options at all. Yet he has deleted his V3 agents and added V4, but few companies appear in V4 are all empty. And then, so Chris, perhaps can again we reach out to you with your tenant ID. If you can share that on chat, we will reach out to you and set up a session for you to get this addressed ASAP. Fred has a question that I'm seeing most of our agents are offline in V4 as well, and the tenant name is resultant. So yeah, point taken, Fred. We will Vrushali,
Agents being shown as offline is not a problem because, as I said, we basically have switched off the online notifications from the agents. So folks, as we basically are migrating, what's happening is there's a huge flood of messages because the new agent runs, it basically starts pushing full data into the system, right? So if we start basically pushing data about online, offline status, so basically it will just overwhelm both your network side as well as on our side. Basically, we are, so what we've done is we've deprioritized the online, offline message and basically asked all of the agents to report in first. So you will start seeing the online offline status starting early next week, because once we basically have a significant amount of data, the first data that has basically been pushed into the system, after that, since it's only incremental, we'll essentially switch on the agent status over there.
So yeah, David has a valid concern that he was waiting for the migration to be enabled to roll out Connect Secure to a few clients since they were early in the adoption, and to want to roll out V3 and then have it migrate to V4. But now he's stuck because the migration happened before they were added, and now he can't trigger a sync because the manual or incremental sync is not enabled.
No, the manual, as far as V3 is concerned, there is nothing which is basically disabled over there. Everything is synchronized. So basically, that the existing system works exactly as it was earlier working. So there is nothing basically different from V3 or V4.
Yeah. Robert has a question: where do we get the 2FA code for the old V3 MFA code? Because the old V3 MFA code doesn't work. I think Ryan has
not migrated. not
Okay.
migrated, have to reconfigure auth providers for V4.
Yeah, so basically when you log in, you will essentially get an option to configure your MFA fresh. And so because it's a totally new provider, that's the way it is.
Okay, so a few questions that Ryan has answered already. So moving on, the risk score calculations is very different to what is in V3. So
So we
This is
provide a widget which will essentially show you how the risk score is calculated, and also we are basically giving you a control panel where you can control how you want the risk score. See, it's not majorly changed. The primary thing is that in a lot of cases, what happens is earlier we were not considering network vulnerabilities as part of the risk score, but looking at other products such as Qualys, etc., they all take this as part of the risk score. So we basically incorporated them. So what we will do right now is to basically give you the ability to control which part of the score you want to include and which you don't want to include.
Okay, so yeah, the getting recordings up on the YouTube channel at times it takes too long. So I think we have to get better at that. We'll try to get it uploaded to YouTube, much sooner going forward. So thank you for your patience on that one. And we'll also, like I said, David will also try to add transcripts and additional details on that. Nathan has a question on the any news on the Discord channel.
So we've created the Discord account and this thing. We'll shortly be circulating the information about the Discord channel, probably a day or two. We've set up everything else. So the main thing is that we are basically setting up the automation for you to be able to chat from within the product console itself, instead of basically having to come outside and basically chat anything, so that you can post any screenshots, etc., right from there.
Yeah, and thanks to Mark from Celera IT, we should be able to get on the recordings. We should also get the transcripts, because his team is putting that together, and as and when we get it, we will certainly upload it and keep it in a place that is accessible to you on our Confluence wiki. So I just want to kind of quick shout out to Mark there. Thanks, Mark. The manual migration option appeared in V3 for me yesterday, but disappeared today. David's question.
Pardon?
The manual migration option appeared in V3 yesterday, but has disappeared today. This is David's question.
No, because we are doing the automated migration. So there was a lot of confusion about, basically I'm seeing this migrate button. So how does it work? So we essentially removed it for now. And as I said, we will basically bring it back into the system once we basically have done the initial migration. After that, for incremental things, we will give control to people to basically manually control whatever it is.
Chris has a point that is it possible to just wipe out a V4 tenant and restart migration? Is that and recreate if that's the easy option?
If it's required, we can do it. That's not a problem.
Okay, Chris, so answer is that if you need that, please send us a mail on support and as a ticket, and we will get that done for you. Steve's point is, yeah, that our beta logins were sent in clear text mails. So, yeah, point. That's something that maybe we'll figure out a way to send it as some secret message going forward. Sorry about that.
We actually debated that a lot. I'm going to be very clear on that, right? See, we debated a lot on this whole thing, saying that, okay, should we send it in separate emails? And then we essentially saw that we did this a couple of times. I'll be very open with everyone, because see, the point is that if you guys can tell me a solution to this, I will basically happily listen. So in the version 1, what we did was we separated it out into 2 emails. And then what happened is people got one email, they didn't get the other email. And then they basically said, oh, we didn't get both the emails. And then it went into spam, this was there, etc. Then in the second version that we used to send, what we did was we sent the mail, and then we essentially kind of blackened out the whole thing. So only when you highlighted it, you could look at the password. And then people said, oh, basically, like, who does this stupid thing of basically highlighting the password? then we essentially looked at all the other tools. Everybody basically just put the username and password and sent it in their emails, right? So, and then we said, okay, maybe this is how everybody would like to see their username and password. And we basically sent it out to everyone. I will tell you exactly, like, in fact, one of my things was that what should we do? I was basically telling people, like, look, we have our Citadel, which is basically our authentication provider. So why don't we ask the authentication provider to just send a link, and when they come in, they will essentially kind of configure their password, etc. The problem with that was that if I gave you that link, when you click on that link, right, you would land up in basically the authentication provider portal. You would essentially enter all the data over there. After that, it would never come back to our portal. So then you would basically be stuck with like, yeah, and then the question would come saying that, why am I sitting here? Where did you bring me to? And basically I'm stuck over here. So these were some of the technical issues that we basically went through. And then we finally decided, yeah, let's go with sending the username and password. And we're making sure that it's going only to your email account. So hopefully, basically, you are not forwarding it on anywhere. Plus, we have the security of, like on the first time you log in, you have to basically change your password. So it is not basically the same password that can be used anywhere else. And basically, it is not delivered, but it is not delivered to a group. It is not copied to anyone, nor is it basically delivered to, not anybody inside the organization has access to those emails. So that's how we basically decided on getting it sent this way.
A few more questions. We are actually well over time. So my request is for people who have technical support, please continue to raise tickets. We'll make sure that everybody here is working to help make the transition as smooth as possible. Last couple of questions I would like to take is on, will Discord eventually replace the Slack?
Yes.
Yeah, because I think one of the problems also is that we have way too many communication channels that are open. There's a Teams that was there, and then it didn't quite work out for a lot of people. Then there was Slack, and Discord, I think, seems to be the popular consensus that it's something that everybody would like to see us use. So if that's fine with everybody, then we would eventually like to move to Discord and request that we connect on Discord for any future discussions. But yeah, for now we are monitoring Slack, but yeah, the next level is eventually to move to Discord. Okay. Yeah, David has a question that maybe we can send a one-time link with expiration and no password would be preferred. Chris, thanks for that vote of confidence that what you've seen is good in V4. Yeah, that's the whole idea and the purpose behind the new UI is to make it much more usable, and the context-sensitive menus and all those will certainly help. So yeah, hang in there. My request, everybody, you have all been incredibly patient and supportive. We just need this one last help from all of you, and we'll make sure that the tool meets certainly all the expectations that you have from it. With that, Shiva, do you want to just quickly get in any closing thoughts, and then we can move on?
I just want to thank everyone for their support and basically kind of also let everyone know that we are fully committed to whatever things you throw at us. We will essentially resolve it and basically get it back to you. And that is basically the commitment from me and the entire team that stands behind me over here. So we will essentially make sure that everything is up to the mark and basically is a product that you can essentially, all of us can feel proud of.
So thanks everyone, and have a great rest of the day and week. Thank you. Bye-bye.